So everybody's actually joined from my office only. I can see Parag.
आओ साथ हो जाए एक कदम और बढ़ाए दुनिया को जगाए इन आग की लपटों से एक जिंदगी और बचाए हमारे हाथों में है जीवन का दौर आओ ले चले सबको सुरक्षा की ओर एक लक्ष्य लेकर चले हम आग ना बन जाए मातम हर जान कीमती हर सांस अनमोल एक लक्ष्य लेकर चले हम आग ना बन जाए मातम हर जान VRFSAI 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 It's a walk on fire, but we don't sigh. Fighting fire, battling flames, saving lives is our aim. For we can't ignore the hue and cry. We are on a mission, noble and high. VRFSAI, 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 VRFSAI. We are defenders of people's safety and life security. FSAI of all humanity.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a pleasure to have you on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I mean, it's quite sunny today outside, of course. So, it is one of its kind topic that we have today. And we are the speaker is actually going to talk about the QR-based visitor management systems. And I'm sure all of us would be wanting to have different, takeaways from this webinar today. FSAI has been conducting a lot of webinars and specifically based upon the IoT systems and building management systems. So part of it, the same bucket list QR-based visitor management system. As far as the speaker is concerned, besides being a very dear friend of mine, he has been specific, especially after his previous webinar, which was based upon the AQI. There has been a very popular demand that we get him back on one of the webinar series. So he was kind enough, and he is now Vikas Saxena is again in your screen, and he's going to talk about the QR-based visitor management system, leadership roles in various stints. He's also the vice chair for FSAI for security codes, also technical group member of ISHRE and Institution of Engineers. So इनकी जितनी तारीफ की जाए उतनी कम है and definitely not you know stretching it more. I would pass it on to Vikas to kind of
Thank you so much, Anas, and thanks the whole FSAI team. for getting me back. So of course, thanks Anas for the introduction, quick introduction. Today, the topic that I'm going to touch upon, I think, is something which is existed for ages. It's nothing new that I'm going to talk about. The only difference that I will talk today is the way technology is helping this, become better. Is my screen visible to you guys?
Yes, sir.
Happened. One sec, just allow me one sec. Uh, so as I said, the has it gone to the presentation mode? Harsha, is it visible?
Yeah, your presentation is visible, sir, but
Yeah,
not
yeah, it's
in
perfectly
presentation
fine.
mode.
Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Now it's
now it's in full screen. Yes, sir.
brilliant.
Please go
Brilliant.
ahead. Thank you.
So as I said, the topic that I want to touch upon today is not something which is very new. I think we as a country, India, we've always been known for Atiti Devo Bhava, which means we have always been welcoming the guests at our homes and places. So of course, this is something which is flown in our DNA. We're known for the hospitality and the warmth that we give to our guests. So as I said, the topic is not new. It's right there in our DNA. It's existed. The only thing which I'm going to talk today is how technology is helping us make that experience and make the guest experience better. Okay, as I said, Atithi Devo Bhava means Atithi is like a god. We treat him like a god. Okay, uh, so I will today in the agenda cover specifically about what is visitor management, uh, what are the key components. Then I'll also touch upon a small brief on the QR code as a technology. Okay, so that some of you are able to understand. Yeah, how do I do that? I don't know. So I will touch upon that. Then I will talk about the key components which become part of the visitor management system, which are based on QR code today. Touch upon certain workflows and the architecture. Look at certain key features. And as I talk on the features or any other topic, I would also request and expect that whoever are the participants, and in case they have any queries, clarifications, they can surely raise their hands while I talk, or if they want to note it down and ask me at the end, I'm more than happy to answer to my best knowledge and effort. Um, we'll talk about implementation benefits. How does a VMS system, when installed, what all kind of benefits can it bring in, both in terms of security as well as in terms of operational efficiency, because it has dual advantages. A brief on the implementation strategy in terms of how should we go about it in terms of when we think through of an implementation, and then certain best practices and recommendations of what could be future considerations. So that's what is going to be the whole agenda. Now, so as I said, India, of course, traditionally has been talking about this. We've heard it. I think it's also the motto that today the India government is been promoting across the globe. We've been welcoming tourists from across the globe, and our motto has been Atiti Devo Bhava. But if we were to look at it from a perspective of a data science or a data point today, then there are data available which do point out that if you want to offer a safe workplace, then 92% of the respondents who got interviewed, they did state that they would feel safer if the workplaces in which they worked had a kind of a system, a visitor management system, which could control and ensure that only authenticated visitors entered. So there are two parts to it, as I said in my initial introduction also. A visitor management system has two impacts. One is on the side of security, the other is in terms of the operational efficiency. Second, of course, from a risk mitigation perspective, now today we all know that there has been the risks today continue to get enhanced with every passing day. There are threats which do occur. Now, when I talk about threats, then I'm not talking about only threats of one kind. I think all of us belong to fire and security as fraternity. We understand the threats that do exist out of fire and security today. But what we also know now, after having seen COVID in our lifetimes, that there are threats which can also be happening out of health hazards. Now we know that COVID happened because there were people who got infected, and when they moved around freely without getting checked inside the offices when they were entering, they continued to spread the COVID through contact and contact. Now, that's the kind of risk mitigation that a VMS, a good designed VMS can also take care of. So that's the second point. Third, of course, as I said, efficiency. It does impact. Now, I think within our own day-to-day work, we do move across various meetings in our professional life, and we have experienced personally as well that when we do enter offices, at times we may have to wait at the receptions despite the meeting being planned, being scheduled, the host knowing about us coming, we calling them even before we are stepping inside their office. Despite that, because most of the entries today are done in pen and paper, there are chances that you may get, you may have to kind of get stationed or stay up at the reception for a while before you can get in. And of course, that does mean that if you had a delayed entry inside the building or inside the office, then of course you're also expecting a delay in every other succeeding activity, including meeting. So overall, if you look at it, there are multiple impacts that a bad visitor management can lead to. Now, is this something new today? As I said, no, it is not. It has existed for ages. I think all of us have grown up in a world which has evolved out of pen and paper and today has moved to a digital technology. So there are multiple kinds of visitor management systems which do exist today as well. The basic one is, of course, the pen and paper. I think most of us, when we enter inside a facility, we do come across a guard who makes an entry for our entry inside that building. Now, of course, you may at times question yourself and the guard that how does he get to know what is the authenticity of the entry that is being made there, because he does not have any clue of what you're trying to put inside. Neither does that entry have any control in terms of the authenticity of information, in terms of the legitimacy of reading that sometimes people may write in such a bad handwriting that if you were to review that record, it may become ineligible for from a reading perspective. So there are a lot of pains that are involved from a pen and paper perspective. And the worst part is that even if you are a regular visiting, repeated visitor who comes into that building very frequently, you still will be required to make an entry every time that you enter. Now, but the reality still does exist as a system, not only in India, across the world as well. Then, of course, with the advancement of technology, there are digital visitor management systems that came in. It's not, again, something which is evolved with a QR code. QR code, of course, has made it more simpler and more adaptable. But then there have been VMS systems which have existed again for ages where people could make entry on a digital format or a digital register. The mode could have been any. But then the reality is that there are again two kinds of systems here. One which are absolutely on the prem local, which means that they kind of only record. So they're basically replacing the pen and paper with a digital register. What you do is basically create your own entries, and what this system does it maintains a record. The advantages, of course, over the pen and paper is that a uh, it has the capability of taking your picture. It has the capability of at least ensuring that if you are a repeat visitor, it can reproduce your data through your phone number getting inside. So it can do that kind of, and then of course the biggest advantage is that the administrator or the security head or the HR or the administration, whoever is the custodian, has the capability or has the ability, not capability, has the ability to look at the analytics to uh, download various kind of reports from the system, which of course in a pen and paper system would require a lot of manual intervention and lot of manual work. Uh, Now, with the advent of cloud and with the adaptation of most of the technologies moving to cloud and with the convergence, today we have visitor management system which use cloud um, servers for the hosting of applications. Now, there are definitive advantages of a cloud visitor management system vis-a-vis a on-prem server. Now, the biggest advantage being that if you actually have your data uh, uh, interacting at a cloud level, then you surely can do a lot of integrations with other platforms. To give you a very, very simplistic and a easy to understand example, let's say if you wanted to authenticate that if it is Vikas Saxena who's making an entry is actually the Vikas Saxena known in the country because there would be multiple Vikas Saxena, then I surely can have an integration with the Aadhaar database of the government. And the moment I put my Aadhaar ID inside the VMS, it could actually get authenticated against that database, provided I was having the data hosting being done at the cloud level. Now, that of course is a very, very significant feature because that kind of avoids any kind of unauthorized entry and it ensures that only authenticated visitors are making an entry. So those are the kind of VMS which do exist from a perspective of what is available today. Now, QR code, I think all of us have been using QR codes day in, day out. I think it's become a part of our life. Everything that you see around yourself is a QR. I think most of the experiences are being rated through a QR. Now, I don't know how many of you know what a QR means actually. Does anybody know what a QR means? What is the full form of QR? Uh, Anybody wants to answer it on the chat or otherwise? In the chat, of course, more than happy to hear. Does anybody understand what Q? So I know everybody knows what a QR code is, but what does QR stand for? Okay, I'll not take much time. Okay, somebody has responded. Quick response code. So okay, so the answer came from my team only. Ranjini, thank you so much. Yeah, so it's basically quick response code. That's the short form. Now, historically, the QR code was first introduced in 1994. And again, don't get surprised, like most of the other inventions or improvements, this also came from automobile industry itself. So this was being used by a Japanese company called Denso for inventory management of their parts while they were shipping it. So QR code is a readable code, which of course constitutes an array of black and white squares, which you can see on the left hand side of my screen. Now, this can be used typically for storing URLs. I think most of us today, when we go to restaurants, the menu today is a QR code on the tables, which when we scan through, we get a whole menu card which opens up over a URL. And it can also do carry a lot of other information which can be packaged inside this. Now, today most of the cameras most of the mobile phones do have cameras that can scan the QR code and they have the capability to scan and produce the results of the QR code. Now, what's the benefit to use? I'm sorry. What are the benefits of QR code? It's easy to use. In terms of, I think most of us today or globally, the smartphones have kind of penetrated the world population quite densely. So today we all carry in the form of smartphone a QR scanner in our hand. So of course it's easy to use. These can be customized with a logo, color. So there are a lot of variations which can be made out of this. It can store a lot of data inside it. And if you were to compare it to the barcodes, these can carry more data than them and can be still smaller than size from a point of form factor. These are contactless for sure. You don't need to have a physical contact for reading the data. So that's fundamentally what a QR code is. I again see what is that? Paperless digital information transfer. What was that, Anand? I didn't understand. You said paperless digital information transfer. Are you saying that's the benefit of VMS? Ananda, I saw two comments from you. Paperless digital information transfer. Is that the feature of uh, QR code based VMS that you're talking? That it is paperless and digital information transfer? I'm hoping that's what you intended. We surely will talk about it uh, in my next slide as well. Now, what are the key components of a QR code based VMS system? Uh, you need a digital pre-registration system, which means that it should allow visitors to register their details online before arriving at a facility. Um, so again, when we will talk on the workflow of the visitor management system, one advantage that uh, uh, um, a cloud-based QR, a cloud-hosted QR-based VMS system today offers is that the visitor can pre-register himself or herself even before they've stepped inside the meeting, which means that they can do this registration at a remote location or at their own location much before the defined time of the meeting. Um, then, of course, the other piece is the QR code generation and distribution. So you need surely a software which can generate a QR code containing information such as visitor details, meeting schedules, access permissions. And once this code is generated, then you need to definitely share this QR code with the visitor or with the guest who is supposed to be using this to gain access inside your facility. Now, the media of sharing this could be emails, could be SMS, could be even mobile apps, or it could be printed passes if it's a walk-in visitor. Uh, Third piece that you need inside a VMS system is a scanning station. Now, scanning station, when I'm talking today, as I said, most of the tablets and phones, the smartphones have the QR code scanners built inside the camera. So these are used at the entry points. Then, of course, at the back end, you have something to do the central management, which is where the software is hosted. And this is where the administrator of the facility slash the um, um, of the facility has the access to real-time reports, real-time control and monitoring, and management of the visitor. This can, of course, provide a lot of reports in terms of visitor insights, access control, data analytics. You can manage multiple sites. You can have alerts and notifications coming out. And last but not the least, the reality is today most of the facilities that exist today or get designed for the future have otherwise also security systems which are installed. Now, if I have a facility which has got an access control inside it, I need to ensure that I have an integration of my visitor management system with the access control system. Now, if it's a retrofit, let's say if the facility already exists and there is an access control installed, which means that all the doors inside the facility beyond the reception are access control, then a VMS surely should be integrated to ensure that whatever saving of time that we are having from a point of making the easy access of a visitor should also be able to utilize this power of integration of VMS with the access control at the main door to kind of um, um, increase that saving of time. Otherwise, what will happen is that let's say somebody's got through with the visitor management system, and if it's not integrated to the access control, you will still need either a manual intervention or a manual escort to open that access control door, which means again, whatever you would have saved in terms of time would get utilized both in terms of a manpower specifically taking that action as well as time getting consumed in making that access control door. So today there are integrations which are available both at an API level as well as hardware level where the access control systems can be integrated with the VMS system. Now, from a point of architecture, if you look at it, there could be um, here we've taken a walk-in visitor. How does this work? So a walk-in visitor goes to a desk, which is where he or she produces his makes an entry, get a QR code, and the QR code gets approved by the host, whoever is the host inside the office, and once it is approved, they get access. Now, this information is all being exchanged at the software application which is hosted on the cloud. And in case there is an integration done with the access control node, then of course the software application which is hosted at the cloud does also do a communication exchange with that uh, access door through a IoT controlled hardware lock to ensure a release and lock of that particular door. And all the reports are available as dashboards to the admin front desk. So from a point of architecture, that's the kind of exchange that happens. And all the archiving of data with regards to visitor logs and visitor entries is again stored in the cloud, which can be accessed by the administrator with a authenticated authorized password for the period of time that they would want to access this. So this is again time selectable, and they can pull back the reports for a month or for a year, whatever time window they need to. There are two kinds of workflow that do happen in a visitor management. Now, most of you would have experienced this. There could be two kinds of visitors or visits. One is somebody who just walks in without an appointment, which means somebody lands at your office unannounced and wants to meet you. In that case, of course, they will need to make an entry inside the visitor management application where they will also do a declaration. Now, there are various fields in a visitor management um, system field. This, apart from taking the um, uh, requisite required inputs like name, photograph, mobile number, email ID, organization name, also has a health declaration, as I said earlier, that this not only does bring in operational efficiency or enhances security, it also does add an element of ensuring that only healthy people enter the organization. There is a health declaration forms which are typically today part and parcel of these applications, which somebody has to define, declare himself as a self declaration. Uh, Once the guest does that, visitor does that, this will go as a request to the handphone slash the application of the host to whom this gentleman or lady would have come to meet. The host will have a right to either accept the request or reject the request, or he or she can also choose to reschedule the request, the meeting request for a different day, different time. Now, let's say if the host was to approve the request, in that case, the walk-in visitor will receive a QR code on his or her mobile phone, and this QR code will be scanned by the security desk slash the front desk to see the authentication of the visitor having been granted the entry, and that is how the entry will be done. Of course, there are other extensions which can be made for visitor management system in terms of integration with meeting room. That means that not only does the visitor get entry inside the facility, he or she also has an allocated meeting room, which is where he is directed to. And whenever the meeting ends and the visitor is checking out, he or she either checks out through a scan of QR code himself or herself, or in case he or she does not do that checkout while exiting the facility, the systems today do get programmed to auto check out the visitor at the stroke of midnight. A very similar workflow from a point of entry works for pre-approved visitor. Now, what is a pre-approved visitor? Again, there are meetings which get scheduled much before, which means that you raise a meeting request. Here, the moment you raise a meeting request, the guest or the visitor will receive the meeting request as a SMS slash WhatsApp on his or her phone, and as well as on the mail ID. He and she will have on that message the details of meeting in terms of who has invited them, when is the meeting scheduled in terms of time and date. And third, it will also have the geolocation as a Google map coordinate for the place of meeting. The visitor again will have to do the same process when he receives this, he or she will have to open and do the registration for the meeting. And once they do that, they will automatically get kind of registered for the meeting. On the day of meeting, they will uh, reach the front desk. They will show the QR code which they have received, and they will get a access inside the facility. And from there on, again the same process follows. Some of the key features that VMS offers today. We've talked about it. If it is a QR code based check-in checkout, then the wait time, of course, does come down. We can almost say there's zero wait time because everything is being done digitally, and all the authentication and approvals are also being done digitally, which means that there is no wait time for the visitor. Uh, it does have the form as I talked about for the health and health status and self declaration, which means that it also does to some extent take care of the of ensuring that only healthy people do enter the facility to ensure no infections or no diseases do get carried inside. Uh, there can also be possibility of integrating the VMS system today with also the hygiene status inside the facility. So there are again integrations available where you could integrate the indoor air quality, which I spoke about in my last webinar, status for the meeting room to the application, and that also could be done. There are certain softwares which do also offer applications like lost and found. So at times it happens that visitors do come in to meet, and in the meeting they may tend to forget some of their articles, let's say the USB drives or shades. Now from there on, once they've left, it becomes a really a humongous task which requires a lot of manual intervention to trace and track and return these lost articles. Um, but if you are using a visitor management system which has these features, which are called lost and found features, then the retrieved article can be digitally recorded in the system, and it can be returned back to the authentic owner of the article. It's possible. Um, Now, while the system does all this, of course, it does have a very huge impact on the experience both of the visitor and the host. So, the visitor management systems today do have a feedback mechanism where while the visitor exits, he or she scans the QR code and can rate his or her experience in terms of how was their experience of inside that facility right from entry till the exit. Um, Now, typically inside a meeting room today, you require service supports, including pantry services, including IT services if your guest has to log in to the network or he or she has to make a presentation. All these kind of workplace services can be digitized and can be and their workflows can be orchestrated inside the visitor management system today. And as I said earlier, if you already have an access control or if you are having a new building which will have an access control, it makes all the sense to have the VMS integrated with the access control to ensure that the visitor and the host have a seamless experience while making entry. Certain other advanced features of the VMS today include, of course, a VMS does mean that you are scheduling a meeting which will have a date and timestamp. Now, you cannot be running two different calendars because most of us today in our work environments have access to our Microsoft Outlook calendars or some other calendars. Now, you would not want to look at two different calendars. So, of course, there is an integration which is there with the enterprise uh, email so that you are seeing only one calendar. The meetings do get plotted. Um, the visitor management system also can offer emergency evacuation notification. Now, uh, I think again, most of us coming from fire and security fraternity do understand the importance of emergency evacuation. Now, uh, during an emergency evacuation system, while your own employees may be well trained to know where to exit in case of an emergency because you do must be carrying out multiple fire drills, practice fire drills. The The problem is that when you have guests slash visitors inside, how do you ensure that they also have a safe exit? So one, when you are managing your visitors through a visitor management system, you any which ways have the number of count of visitors who are inside your facility, and thereafter you can also use the VMS to do a muster call and evacuate them safely. Visitor management system also, some of them, again, these are just for some generic features, can also have features to incorporate floor maps and layouts. And let's say if you have QR codes placed across the facility, you can actually track the location of the visitor inside your facility as well, rather than just at the entry exit. User preferences and choices, I think I've spoken about it, more to do with workplace orchestration, and then of course a single sign-on application. Uh, what are the benefits? So I spoke in of two benefits. One was security. Second was operational efficiency. So let's look at what all can happen in a security enhancement. So one is of course the digital identity verification. Now, um, if I was doing a digital identity verification through a manual, ID check, which is what today when a pen and paper system is used is done. So some of the security guards will look at your Aadhaar card and they will give you an entry and exit entry inside the facility basis that. But the reality is they do not have any mechanism of authenticating whether the identity which you're showing them is actually the real identity or it's a fake identity. So of course, there are chances that a visitor can, kind of create a fake identity or a government ID and can still make an entry inside the facility. Whereas the moment you bring in a QR-based digital VMS system, and as I said, if it is cloud hosted, you could actually authenticate the government ID against a authenticated database, which is a government database, and you can eliminate that human error that can happen, and thus, kind of reduce any kind of uh, fake entry which can be done inside the system. That's one. Second is real-time visitor tracking. So of course, as I said, if you actually had multiple QR codes throughout the facility, or let's say if there are, think of a plant which has got a main entry gate and thereafter multiple shops where different processes do take place. You could use QR code scans at each of the entries, and then you could actually know the location of the visitor in which part of the facility he or she is. So let's say if you have a visitor who's supposed to be entering only a specific department slash area inside a facility, and if that is controlled, then you could really track this on a real-time basis, his status, and thus avoid him trespassing into an area, him or her trespassing into area where his or her entry is restricted. Um, you could also have an automated watch list screening. Now, what does it mean? That let's say there is um, certain visitors who have had a bad track record, or let's say there is an advisory from the government or from the enforcement agencies against certain suspects, then and if you could actually get their information inside your database, you could always blacklist any visitor who kind of tries to make an entry inside your facility if it's already been barred by the system. So that's possible, which again is a very uh, um, serious and a good feature from a security perspective. The same, of course, is not possible if you're making a pen and paper entry because then you do not have anything to compare with. Um, you can have digital audit trails, which means that the records that do get created cannot be tampered with. So if a pen and paper record can be manipulated. Uh, Somebody can actually by intent ensure not to make an entry or cross off an entry or tear off a page, which of course in a digital system is not possible. It you really will not be able to do any kind of tampering. So that's again a benefit that the audit which gets created is all digital and this it cannot be altered. Emergency evacuation I've already spoken about, that you could do a real-time head count of all the visitors and then do a muster tracking. And then, of course, visitor history tracking. Now, Of course, you will have a lot of visitors who will have repeat visits. You could always look into their access patterns, how they come in, to whom they come to meet in, and if there are any incidents which are related to their presence, then there are a lot of diagnostics that can be done around that with the history tracking. In terms of operational efficiency, one straight out is that since you're doing entry of the visitor without a pen and paper, you of course are eliminating um, um, the queuing up of people at the reception. That means there is no wait time. So of course that does bring in no clutter. Your front desk person who's managing the visitor entry has a lot of free time available to do other critical stuff rather than making an entry only. So that's one. It does bring in reduced check-in time, and any time saving today, I think, is straight away a dollar value add to the PNLs of most of the organization. Automated notification system. So if you actually have you're not trying to trace people over the phone calls. So typically what happens today is that if you have a pen and paper system, and if the person who's granting you access inside the building will typically end up calling the host either on his extension or on his or her mobile phone. Now, either which ways, it's a very inefficient way of trying to locate host. But the moment you have a VMS, then the notification or alerts for any visitor coming to meet them comes on their in-app notification as well as on their emails, which means you do not need phone calls. You can respond to the situations immediately. Wait time for visitors does get reduced. Uh, Paperless operation, I think Ananda spoke about this. So, of course, the moment you move to digital technologies today, the first saving is that you surely do have a huge impact on the environment. No more cutting of trees to produce paper. And of course, paper records also means that they do take a lot of space in storage, printer, uh, usage gets reduced. So of course, on a macro level, carbon footprint does get impacted very positively with a digital system today. Uh, the reports which get produced out of the VMS system, these can be used for the compliance monitoring. And again, these can also be used for audit preparation and historical data analysis. It does help in resource optimization, which means that if you know the number of visitors who are going to be visiting because you're using a digital system, you could do the resource optimization in terms of the meeting room availability and allocation. You could do the um, resource optimization in terms of the pantry support and services. And of course, you could also ensure that you're not having a situation where you have multiple visitors landing at the same time and resources getting constrained, right? So that's the big advantage of how a VMS system can help. And of course, from a manpower perspective, there is a direct reduced administrative burden reduction that happens in terms of you are able to free up a lot of time for the front desk slash security who manages the entry exit. You also do a lot of free up time for the administrator himself or herself, since he or she does not have to um, shuffle through a lot of manual reports to basically understand the uh, month gone by in terms of visitor reports and other stuff. And then, of course, most of the VMS today are self-service stations. That again does, ensure that multiple people can make seamless entry at the same concurrent time, thus reducing a lot of manual effort. So there's a lot of administrative burden which does come down. And truly speaking, with whatever operational efficiencies I did speak, there is a direct impact on the cost savings that does happen. In terms of implementation, typically this should be done in three stages. First stage should be planning, which means that there should be a document which should be prepared in consultation between the security, the HR admin, and the facilities team. which should actually list down all the requirements that they have from they expect out of the system. Thereafter, of course, they surely need to make a vendor selection for whatever requirement they've listed down. They should also do the infrastructure assessment because these are digital systems. While they're very hardware agnostics, but then of course they do need to exchange information with the cloud, which means that there is the requirement of the network. And then also look at the integration planning, which, as I said, whether the security system does exist or is being planned, the integration of that security system should be thought through when the planning is being done. In terms of deployment, of course, once the system does get installed, post installation, the training needs to be done because this system is only successful if the people who are part of the system, which means all your employees, all your administrators, and all occupants inside the facility, if they get trained to deliver their role inside there, because all of them will have your application or the VMS application on their handphone. They need to be trained so that the system can be effectively used. And I think it's always better to run it as a pilot program with certain small batch. I'm sorry, I think my background will have turned dark. Um, and then once the testing has been done and all the deliverables have been met as per the requisite plan, thereafter, this should be done as a full scale rollout. And thereafter, the system should be monitored continuously and user feedback should be collected as well. Best practices, since these are software-based systems, they do go through a lot of enhancements, and there are a lot of updates that do happen on a regular basis from the vendors. So then that should be taken care of. So your contracts, the way they should be written is not a one-time purchase, but typically these contracts should be written as service contracts where you are able to take benefits of all the software updates that do happen over the years because there are a lot of enhancements that do get done. Uh, of course, you should look at the backup procedures because your lot of critical data on your visitors is getting stored. So you should look at the backup procedure and the data retention policies of the vendor. And of course, not to discount, there is the data from your facility which is getting exchanged over the cloud. So privacy protection measures should be taken as well. Training is very critical in the effectiveness of a VMS system. Staff orientation programs, while they're done during the implementation stage, there should be a lot of emphasis to continue to do these orientation programs on a regular basis because every organization does see attritions and turnovers. So, which means that new people will come in who would need to get inducted. Um, of course, there is a lot of awareness that is required as well for people to use the system effectively and to also provide the feedbacks. So that all should be taken care of. I think from a future considerations, if you are a multi-location facility or an organization, then that should be taken from a point of scalability. That while you plan to start with one, if you actually have a multi-location footprint, then the system that you should invest in should be something which is scalable, which is enterprise, which can support you at multi locations. Lot of times within our country or otherwise, you would need uh, language support beyond English. So the system should have that capability. Mobile app integration for sure. In some cases, uh, it does also speak about biometric integration, but that's only when you're basically trying to integrate your employee access control with VMS. So may not be. Um, some of the emerging technologies are, of course, AI-powered screening, which I believe is the way this VMS will go. IoT integrations are already in with the access control, where the IoT locks do disengage and authenticate for the door for an authenticator as well. And then, of course, contactless technology. Um, Again, from an ROI perspective, as I had stated in my last webinar as well, any digital technology should touch the four E's, which is the emotion, experience, efficacy, and efficiency. Here also, when we talk about emotion and experience, we're talking of emotion and experience for both uh, visitor slash guest and the host here. You know, they should feel privileged. They should feel that uh, they had a red carpet welcome. They should also get a experience of having a seamless experience while they visited. They should also get an experience that they did not waste any time. From a point of efficacy and efficiency, of course, we are talking of productivity saving, we are talking of security enhancements, we are talking of cost savings, we are talking of time saving. So all that leads to only a increase in efficiency and productivity. And when this continues to happen through a digital interface or a digital system on a repeatable, predictable manner, then of course that becomes an efficacy of the system. So that's what the VMS does in terms of helping an organization. Uh, so that's from my side. I think I'm well within time. 3 minutes left. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that any of you have, or also happy to take any um, um, inputs that you have with regards to something that I missed as a information or any additional recommendation that you have. Uh, does anybody have any suggestions or questions here? Okay. So Ananda wants the PPT. Ananda, I believe Veena already has the PPT. Uh, okay. If you want me to do that, I will do that as well. I hope Veena, that is okay if I send them to this directly to them.
Yes, sir, no problem.
All right. I will, Anand. I will surely send it to you. So I'm happy that this makes me feel that I either spoke too well or spoke too bad. Nobody has any questions or any queries. So either you guys understood everything which I spoke, or you guys didn't understand anything that I spoke. Ananda, I think, is there any API? API for what, Ananda? You'll have to explain to me. What would you mean when you say, is there any API? Are you talking about to integrate with access control integration? Okay. So I'll tell you, there are two ways that any integration can happen. I think, and I can make out by the mail ID that you belong to a automation company. So I can answer to you technically. So there are two ways, Ananda, like any other integration. One is, of course, the API level integration with, let's say, an access control system software. But again, since you belong to that side of the world, you would know that usually those kind of API integrations, while let's say a VMS supplier, let's say me. So I also do produce VMS systems. I may be happy to extend my API to an access control, but most of the companies today have a lot of reservation with regards to opening their own softwares. So, and even if they do, then the cost that they ask for is very prohibitive. But technically, yes, an API integration with an access control software is possible. The easier way of today, the integration with access control systems, or VMS with access control system, is actually to introduce a IoT relay. So what an IoT relay does is that an IoT relay typically acts on the command of the VMS server, which is basically hosted on the cloud. And what it does is it in turns disengages the power of the access control lock whenever an authenticated QR code is presented. So, so from a point of application, from a point of ease, and from a point of even cost, that is a much better way of integrating the access control, because when you talk about VMS getting integrated with an access control system, fundamentally we talk about the integration only for few limited doors. So I hope I have been able to answer it. So, Reena, Anas, I think you're all there. I believe uh, I don't see any
Yeah.
further questions, but
Yeah.
I think maybe if somebody wants to write back, they surely can write back and we can answer it. And over to you guys.
Thank you so very much, Vikas. Another wonderful and insightful presentation by you. And I'm sure most of us would have definitely had a lot of takeaway. हिंदी में बात करूं तो तुम्हारी भाषा बिल्कुल अच्छे से समझ में आई होगी एंड वी वुड हैव ऑल लव्ड वी रियली enjoyed your presentation. And I think we'll sign off from here. And thank you everyone for being a part of this webinar today. And we look forward for having more of such. Thank you so very much.
Thank you everyone, and thanks FSI for having me again. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Vikas. Thank you so much.